All right, everyone, welcome back. Ready for another deep dive with us?
Always ready to dive in.
So today, we're going to tackle a classic. It's a book that's had a huge impact on, well, pretty much anyone who wants to be more effective.
You talking about Drucker, the effective executive?
That's the one. Now, I know it was published back in the 60s,
1966, to be exact.
right, 1966. But even after all these years, the ideas in this book, they haven't aged a bit. Still so relevant
Well,
today.
absolutely. It's like timeless wisdom. The principles of effectiveness, they're not tied to any specific era.
Exactly. And what's great is that we've got this awesome podcast and video summary to help guide us so we can really get to the heart of Drucker's message without getting bogged down.
Perfect for our deep dive.
Exactly. So get ready, folks, because we're about to unlock the secrets to getting the right things done. And trust me, this is about more than just checking things off a to-do list. This is about making a real impact. Ready to dive in?
Let's do it.
Okay, so one of the things that really stood out to me in The Effective Executive was this emphasis on time management.
Yeah, for Drucker, that was like the cornerstone of effectiveness.
It really is. I mean, think about it. If you can't manage your time, what can you manage?
Right. He actually says, and this is a quote, if you can't manage time, you can't manage anything.
He's not wrong.
Oh,
But how do you actually, manage time effectively? Especially in today's world, there are so many distractions.
well, Drucker had a pretty clear three-step process, and it starts with kind of like step zero almost, just understanding where your time actually goes.
So, like tracking your time.
Exactly. Track your time. You got to know where it's all going before you can start, making changes.
That makes total sense. I feel like I could probably be more intentional about that.
Most people could, to be honest. It's easy to let the day just slip away. But once you have a handle on where your time's going, the next step is to start cutting out the unproductive stuff.
The time wasters.
Exactly. Those tasks that just they don't really move the needle, Those meetings that could have been emails or that project that you're just kind of spinning your wheels on. Got to be ruthless about cutting those out.
Okay, I'm ready to be ruthless. Get rid of those time wasters.
Hmm.
But then, what? What do we do with all this newfound time?
Well, that's where Drucker's third step comes in. Focus on results, not effort.
So it's not about being busy. It's about being effective.
Exactly. It's not about how many hours you put in, but about the actual impact you're making. What are the outcomes? What are you achieving?
That's a really important distinction.
Huh?
Now, another big takeaway from the book that I found really interesting was this idea of focusing on strengths rather than trying to fix all your weaknesses.
Oh, yeah, that's classic Drucker. He argues that effective executives, they really understand their strengths and they leverage them.
Instead of trying to be good at everything.
Right. Because no one's good at everything. It's much more effective to, build a team where everyone's strengths complement each other.
It's like assembling a superhero team, each with their own superpower.
Exactly. And by focusing on your strengths, you can really excel in those areas where you naturally shine.
But how do we actually figure out what our strengths are? I mean, sometimes it's hard to be objective about ourselves.
That's true. It takes some honest self-reflection. Think about what you naturally gravitate towards. What energizes you? What are you doing when you lose track of time? Those are usually good clues.
And what if our strengths, don't perfectly align with the demands of our current job?
Hmm, that's a tough one. I mean, sometimes you can try to adjust your approach, maybe delegate some tasks or look for opportunities to use your strengths in new ways. But sometimes it might be a sign that you're in the wrong role altogether.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Okay, so if our listeners could take away just one, core message from the effective executive, what would it be?
Oh, that's a good question. I think for me, it would be this. An effective executive, they're not someone who does everything. They're someone who makes sure the right things get done.
So it's about prioritization.
Yeah, prioritizing, delegating, constantly asking yourself, what's the most impactful thing I can be doing right now?
That's such a valuable reminder. It's so easy to get caught up in the day-to-day and lose sight of the bigger picture.
Absolutely.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into the effective executive, I want to ask you, the listener, what resonated most with you? And what's one action you can take this week to be more effective?
Yeah, and here's something to think about. How might focusing on effectiveness, like Drucker talks about, how might that ripple out into other areas of your life? Beyond just work, could it make you a more present parent, or a more attentive partner, or a more engaged friend?
That's something to really ponder. We've only scratched the surface of Drucker's wisdom today, but I hope this deep dive has inspired you to explore his ideas further. Until next time.
See you next time.